Hello, neighbors. This is the Verdi family from Buffalo, New York, owners at Beach Club Villas, Boulder Ridge Villas, Polynesian Villas and Bungalows, and Saratoga Springs Resort and Spa. And you are listening to My DVC Points.
Parents and the children could have fun together.
Please board quickly and safely. Our monorail will be departing momentarily.
Welcome to the My DVC Points podcast. Join the conversation as DVC members share their stories, personal preferences, and magical memories. Your reservation is confirmed, your fast passes are booked. Pull up on the yellow strap because our journey into the magic of membership is about to begin.
To infinity and beyond.
Now, here's your host and curator of magical stories, Chad Pennycuff.
Welcome home, neighbors, to episode 267 of the My DVC Points podcast. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at DVCRentalStore.com. They are a point rental broker that will help you take your excess points and match you up with a potential renter. Also, if you're looking to save up to 40% on the cost of getting a Disney vacation and staying in one of the DVC Deluxe rooms, they can match you with a renter and help you save a lot of money. DVCRentalStore.com. And today's episode is sponsored by them, but as we'll get into it, it may not make sense to use them in this case. And the question that we're answering today is, what if I have these minimal number of points that are going to expire and I can't use them? What are my options? Well, the first thing I'm going to tell you, just to check all the boxes and be safe, if these are bankable points, you're going to want to bank them and use them next year. If you're already past your banking deadline and you've got a couple of extra points, we're talking 10, 12, something along in those lines, you got some limited options here. The next option would be to make a reservation and try to rent out those points as a confirmed reservation. Our sponsor, DVC Rental Store, will take even a single night and post it up on their website and see if they can help you find a renter for that. If you've got enough points to make a single night and you can find an available room, that's great. But chances are, if you're in the last 4 months of the life of this, because these are use or lose points, availability is starting to get really scarce the closer you get to check-in date. And what happens in the DVC system is all of the high desired rooms start to come back in and get taken up first. And then as you get closer to check-in time, all of your premium resorts get sold out. Animal Kingdom Jumbo gets sold out. Then Kidani gets sold out. Then Old Key West gets sold out. And finally, last but not least, Saratoga will get sold out. So it can be really hard to find a last-minute room. However, it doesn't mean you can't do that. Now, I want to come back in and address a second point here about throwing good money after bad. Let's say, for example, you have 12 points, but you need 14 or 15 to book a room. At that point in time, you're either going to borrow some points, so you're going to take good points with a lot of life left and borrow them into this to make this reservation in hopes that you can rent these out. Doesn't sound too great to me. The other thing you could do is get some one-time use points for $20 a point directly from DVC and make this reservation. Now, you're not going to get $20 a point if you try to rent these out yourselves. So you've got this balancing act here of, am I going to throw good money after bad or good points after bad to try to come back in and speculate, can I find a renter? Most people look at those situations and they tend to back off from them, which is okay. I really completely understand. I'm not a big fan of that myself. The other question people tend to ask is they've heard about transferring points and they want to know, hey, who wants to rent these points? Well, for the hassle of 10, 15 points, there's a lot of hoops, but for 10 or 15 points, there's a lot of fish hooks in this barrel that's going to catch you on this deal. So let's unpack these really fast. First off, if you're going to transfer points to somebody, they cannot be banked points and they cannot be borrowed points. Neither one of those are transferable. Second off, your friend is also going to have the same room availability and scarce ability battle that you're trying to face here. So now, if your friend happens to have an existing reservation that happens before these points expired, and you were to transfer them to them, they could come back into this once the point transfers are there, which you have to call member services to do this transfer. You could ask member services, and you could even ask before you transfer, is there any way we can replace points on an existing reservation? If you're more than 31 days out, that may work out for you. There's a small chance that you can come back in and replace those points. If you're transferring in the same home resort and it was an 11-month booking, you've got no problems. If it's a different home resort and they made it at the 11 months, not going to happen because you can't replace points of an 11-month booking with a non-home resort point. But if your friend made this reservation within the 7-month window, comfortably within it, not the first 7 days of the 7-month window when things are a little dicey, but if they've made it past well into the 7-month window, they can probably come back in and replace some of their points with your points. Now, if you're within 31 days of check-in and they do this, you can still replace the points, but the points that they're going to pull out of this are going to be in what's called a holding account. And the holding account, it's good, it's bad, but it's really not going to do you any favors here because those points are going to expire at the end of the year. They will lose the ability to bank or borrow those points. The other thing that's going to happen here is they can only be used to make reservations within 60 days of check-in. So that's another big caveat. It's kind of like could you do this? Yes, you could, but it's got to be a friend because I don't know about you, but I'm not paying anybody for the hassle of a couple of hours of phone calls with member services to use up 10 or 11 points. It's just not going to happen for me. You start talking 20, 30 points and you're going to gift them to me? Okay. 20, 30 points and you're going to give them to me at just the cost of the dues or something really cheap. Maybe I'm interested at that point in time. Just know for yourself, if you think you're going to rent these 10 or 12 points out and get a high dollar amount for them, it's not really going to happen. What's most likely going to happen is these points are just going to die a horrible death that nobody likes to see happen, and they're going to expire. And there's just really not a lot you can do about it. Unless like all of these suns, stars, and moons for a transfer and room availability or a point replacement can come in and work for you. While I don't think those are really great options, the other thing I'm going to tell you is if you do make that guaranteed reservation, you're going to be fire sailing it because it's going to be really close to check-in and you're not going to be getting the premium points per dollars that you hope to have gotten. So just bear that in mind. The other thing I'll tell you is if you're going to use a point rental broker company on there, you may have distressed points and you're willing to take a lower margin on that. They're going to look at this and go, we're in the point renting business. It's just as much work for me to rent a distressed point as it is a non-distressed point. So just because you're in a fire sale mode, don't expect me to take less of a commission or for me to take less income to match you up for another person here. So bear that in mind. What would I do in this situation? I'd probably either give the points away to somebody, but I know 50 million people in the DVC community. So it wouldn't be hard for me to ask around or know who's coming from just my friends and family network countdown and be able to gift those to those people. As always, thank you for tuning in. That wraps up another mini episode of the My DVC Points podcast. Huge shout out of thanks to our sponsors over at DVC Rental Store, DVC Resale Market, and Monera Financial. Also a huge shout out of thanks to our Patreons who help keep our day-to-day lights on and pay all of the bills for this and really enable us to do some really cool content and some cool functionality to come out here and serve the member community. As always, hopefully you've learned something in today's episode that'll help you go out there and plan something magical for your family.
Ladies and gentlemen, please watch your head and step as you exit, and take small children by the hand.
Aw, chill up, Dad. You know I'll come back. With DVC.
My DVC Points is an unofficial Disney-inspired podcast created by fans of Disney Vacation Club. The thoughts expressed in this podcast are personal opinions and personal experiences. My DVC Points is not affiliated with Disney Vacation Club, the Walt Disney Companies, or any subsidiaries. We encourage listeners to contact their DVC guide or member services for official DVC policies.